Welcome to episode 151 of the Grip Strip Podcast, playoffs edition of the Grip Strip Podcast in ode to Jim Morris Sr. It is playoffs week, first round, the Super Wild Card weekend, and for that, I figured we need to have extra people on. So I'm Philip Matthew. I'm your host. I'm here with my co-host, the man, one of the top fans of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm surprised he hasn't cut a promo yet. Hopefully he does on this show. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Doing great, man. Yeah, I don't know how to set a promo, but whatever. But great to be on. But yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars back on to the playoffs, first time in 5 years after making it 2017, where they're first time in 10 years. So we cut the time in half. So now hopefully we can be there year after year. But excited to be in the playoffs again, and I'm actually going to go to the playoff game against the LA Chargers. So it's going to be a pretty fun next Saturday, and already a lot of emotion, a lot of highs right now. So ready to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be talking a lot of NFL here to start, and I figured I'd invite somebody that is a fellow faithful member, somebody who puts out content, puts out good stuff, and we were able to go and talk offline. His name on Twitter is Niner Nate. What's going on, man?
How are you guys doing? Thank you for bringing me on. It's I was thinking about it. I was sitting in my chair at work today. I was just sitting there thinking, and it's just and it's funny you're a Jaguars fan, Josh, because as a Niner fan, we're kind of spoiled, right? Like the fact that we are now on another trip to the potentially the Super Bowl. Last year they were in the NFC Championship game. I mean, right now I feel like I'm on top of the world, Philip. I really feel like they're the best team in the NFC. And there's only one team really stopping them from hoisting number 6, and that's Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. No offense to the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course. But it just it's it's honestly unbelievable, and I'm just so excited, and I really hope they pull this off, because if they pull this off, this will be not only 49er history, this is NFL history, because Kyle Shanahan really did something truly, truly amazing with this football team.
We'll definitely talk about that because if it does happen, I don't know what episode number it'll be, but it may not be able to be recorded because I'll probably be in a hospital because I'll have had a heart attack because I would have been so happy, and I probably would have drank so much that I'll pass out. Because that's what's happened the last two times. Well, not pass out, but I've gotten really shit faced when the Niners played those Super Bowls. But then let's be fair, one of them was against Double Murder, and then the other one was against Kermit the Frog. So and Jimmy was the quarterback. So then you kind of have to drink when you watch Jimmy play football. Yeah, we're gonna get into all of that. We're gonna talk about last week. The Jaguars on Saturday night go and win their fourth division title in team history. Come back from 3-7, 5-game losing streak to get into the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence does what he has to do, but that defense goes insane. Baptizes Josh Dobbs. He had the deer in the headlights look, and he's like, "Why the hell did I sign up for this?" The way your defense was playing, Niners were able to go and put a whooping on the Cardinals and send Cliff Kingsbury and all of his beauty supplies home. Now he's going and he's fired with Steve Keim, who's had I don't know how many coaches he hired over his tenure. They're saying I'm sure he has health. There are some health concerns, but to be fair, he wasn't that good. We'll get into all the matchups for Super Wildcard Weekend. Who didn't make it? There's a couple of big ones that didn't make it. We'll get into those and then talk about who got fired. I just mentioned Kingsbury's one of them. Lovie Smith won, lost to Houston Texans, the number 1 pick, and then got fired because I'm pretty sure that wasn't part of the script that Cal McNair and Nick Caserio had. But to be fair, Cal McNair and Nick Caserio both clueless, and that's why you're 2-14 or 3-14 and or 13-1 or whatever, 14-1 team. And they're trying to hire Josh McCown or something, I guess. I don't know. They probably hire somebody that probably works at the Buc-ee's across the street from there or whatever. That's probably who they're going to hire next. We'll also get into the FallBrawl League that Wilson has won for a third time, making me nauseous because I got blown up in that. And also the Buffalo Cincinnati game was part of that. And then we'll get into the racing side. There's a lot of stuff going on with the Andretti Autosport, Andretti Global, with their trying to get Cadillac. And also it looks like Alpine. I thought it was Honda, now it was Alpine trying to work with them, but the rest of the F1 teams don't want to have anything to do with it because they're assholes. I'll probably go off on that. Roundup, we'll talk about A1 at Anaheim, which saw Eli Tomac win his first A1, come back from a fall, pass everybody and win, and pass Chad Reed in the process. We'll get into the Dakar Rally, which is basically over in the car category. The motorcycle race is still pretty good. Preview the Chili Bowl. They're racing tonight as we speak. Formula E's coming back this week. Getting into news related to IMSA and the Rolex 24. NASCAR, there's some stuff I read today that might be worth going off on as well. Josh will do his sim segment, and missed out on DWR this past week. I'll see if hopefully we could get you in for the last race there, the World Finals. But last week they were at Eldora driving Honda Civic TCRs, which was hilarious. And we'll close the deal. So we'll Josh, I mean, I'll give you the floor, man. I got into the Jacksonville, Tennessee game, and I was shocked that they were down, and I'm like, oh God, don't tell me this is gonna happen. I mean, Jaguars get on this run, and then they dump to the Tennessee Titans, who have their third string quarterback out there because their rookie quarterback couldn't complete a forward pass. And I mean, Josh Dobbs has been on he's trying to do the reverse Ryan Fitzpatrick because he never plays. In this case, he actually did play. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't enough. Jaguars struggled in certain areas, but in the grand scheme of things, Trevor Lawrence did enough. But your defense is scary. It kind of reminds me of 2017. I would think it has 2017 vibes.
I mean, when you have shirt on,
yeah. When you guys made that run, and the difference is you actually have a quarterback now, unlike back in 2017. So you guys are number 4 seed. You'll be hosting the LA Chargers, Anaheim, Alameda, and every other residing town and whatever on Saturday night. And that'll be a good one because the Duval County showed up on last Saturday, and it was nuts. I could only imagine what a playoff game is going to be like.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was almost already a playoff game there with, the game against the Titans. And you made a point earlier about how, you guys as 49er fans are, kind of spoiled and everything. And, you guys, got all your championships from the past and all that stuff. Well, in the early days of Jacksonville, they were, I mean, it was before I was a football fan or, fan of Jaguars, but the Jaguar fans were all spoiled with the early success that team's had. And then, we kind of went into a dark period, for a while, and then, had a couple of playoff appearances here and there during Jack Del Rio era. And then, went to a really bad period for, about a decade, and then had that 2017 run, and then it was back to the darkness again after that. And what was so meaningful about that game is that this time it seemed like unlike the last time in 2017, it seemed like this is something that's going to last for a good while, 5-10 years at least, with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. So it just shows the potential of what's to come in the future, no matter what happens in this playoff run that they're going to be in now. So maybe we'll have an opportunity to be spoiled, I guess, like the 49er fans, like you guys have had for so many years. But it was just a incredible game from just the fan standpoint. Being in the crowd, if you were there, I was not. I was in my house, but you could hear the stadium crowd from your TV. The whole freaking thing started off with probably maybe the most Jacksonville thing ever, or Florida man thing ever, with the local musician, with the long hair, like almost a mullet, sunglasses, playing the Star Spangled Banner on his uh, American flag guitar. So that was a funny sight to see and everything. But just the atmosphere, you could tell it was a big game, and obviously biggest game in Jacksonville since that Buffalo Bills playoff game in for the 2017 season. So, yeah, just a incredible environment. And then the game itself, it was a little bit surprising because the last time Jacksonville had a great game offensively, Trevor Lawrence, that was kind of the game that he came into his own. After the or one of the games that he did that had just had a career performance that day, and made a lot of throws that you could consider, I guess, him throws. That's him, Trevor Lawrence is him and all that stuff. So, he had a lot of good throws in that game, but this game, the Titans, they just came out, and I guess they were ready on defense, and they stopped the run, which they did last time when the Jacksonville played them in Tennessee. So. That part wasn't surprising, but I guess they were able to adjust better to the Jaguars' offense, and I think maybe the lack of a true number one receiver on the Jaguars side kind of started to show. And of course, they'll get Calvin Ridley next year. Once he comes back from suspension, but kind of that need for a guy like that came in this game, and you saw with some of the plays or misses that they had where they could have used a number one receiver to take the top off the defense, and I think it's maybe where some of the offensive struggles that they had earlier in the season kind of started to come back, and they really had to rely on their defense to make the stops, and of course you saw bunch of sacks that they had on Josh Dobbs, and then interception they couldn't get a touchdown, got a field goal off of it, and then later on they were able to force the fumble and turn it back for a touchdown. And I guess that's kind of similar to 2017 because that team, in addition to all the interceptions and sacks that team had, they also had a lot of turnovers, and they were able to create points off of turnovers. And this game, and the last couple of games really, and throughout the year really, they've had games where they've been able to create a bunch of turnovers and go return it for a touchdown or set up the offense for either a field goal or their own touchdown. So just from that standpoint, a really great game. And for a while there, it was stressed for me. I was very stressed, and I had a conversation with my dad like a couple days before. We were talking about like how the Jacksonville media and a lot of other media were really playing up the Jaguars, and saying that the Jaguars are the better team. They've got all the better coaches, the better players, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're like, this might be a big setup for setting them up to fail. Like Tennessee comes out and defeats them, but they were able to pull it out in the end. So just a real emotional victory, and hopefully we have uh, a win against the Chargers, and we're able to go out and start a playoff run. And if we have to go through the Chiefs, we have to go through Buffalo, so be it. And maybe they get there, so we'll see. But Trevor Lawrence getting able to play on a national stage, the Jaguars being on a national stage for the first time in a long time, outside of the Thursday night games. So glad to be able to see that. And it's going to be a new era here in the AFC South here in the NFL, because right now the Jaguars are going to be the kings of the South, and I think they're going to be kings of the South for a very long time.
I definitely agree on that one because you're outside of your GM who's a bum. Uh, the fact is you have a coach, you have the quarterback, and you have a lot of pieces that are building blocks. And you have Calvin Ridley coming back, which the guy was one of the best wide receivers in the league when he was playing. So now he's had time off. It'll take him a little time to readjust, get back into the flow of things, but to add him to that receiver core is scary when you have a guy who can make all the passes that Trevor Lawrence can make.
Yeah, it's
You're
going
going to
to
say
open up
something,
Also
Nate?
everything.
blessed with the fact that you have the Colts and the Texans in your
Yeah,
division, and they are
Yeah,
going to be awful forever.
yeah. the Colts have went off the deep end. It's almost like Jim Irsay is trying to follow his dad. I mean, he just needs the Mayflower truck and to drive it into the river, and it would be the perfect way to go and talk about what the Indianapolis Colts have done to themselves since Andrew Luck retired. Tennessee's uh,
Yeah, they're not
not
really
really
that
much
great either.
anything. They don't
Malik
have,
Willis can't throw the football. He's incapable of it. It's insane.
Well, I
Why would
mean,
you
yeah,
not only
draft the
that,
guy in the
but
second round?
yeah, not only that, but I mean, Ryan Tannehill's, you can only go so far with him, and you can only hand off to Derrick Henry so many times, and he had another 100-yard game, but it also took him 30 carries to do it, so he wasn't really effective. And I mean, you saw he was able to break a couple of runs here and there, but for the most part, the Jaguars were tackling him at the line of scrimmage or keeping him to 2 to 3 yard gains. I mean, he's still pretty tough to bring down, but just he's able to go out and get all those carries, and you don't know how long it's going to last because
yeah.
average lifespan of a NFL running back might catch
Yeah.
up to him here pretty soon. Maybe it's not going to last forever with him.
Shelf
Just
life
imagine
on a running
drafting.
back.
Just imagine drafting Malik Willis over Brock Purdy. Just know that they screwed up that bad.
Oh yeah,
Well, every team screwed up. Let's
I
be
know.
fair, other than the 49ers. But I
It's just
do, my
interesting.
theory is there were a lot of teams looking at him if he had slipped out of the draft and they were going to sign him
Yeah.
for the practice squad. Because obviously there's interest, and the Niners wouldn't have kept him on the active roster if they didn't think that there was interest, because they would have left him theoretically on the practice squad. But I guess, I mean, when you're talking about quarterbacks, the Niners have had similar, like after the last Super Bowl, they had a good run for a few years, and then Steve Young, who's my favorite player ever, gets killed by Aeneas Williams on Monday Night Football, and that basically was the end. And then they sucked for a few years. They came back with Jeff Garcia and Team Obliterator and some of these other people. Then they went into dumpster fire mode for the better part of that decade. Uh, Built a lot of pieces, got a lot of great players. Patrick Willis were able to pick up there in that time. We were able to get some guys from outside like Justin Smith and build things. And then they got Harbaugh. And once Jim Harbaugh came in, it's like a switch turned on. And for 3 years, the Niners were a factor. And Cap was there. He drafted Cap and he believed in him. And the Niners were a play away from winning a Super Bowl. After the lights went out and all that, and Baltimore wants to cry about it. The reality is they needed help from all the refs because Bisciotti paid them off anyway. So, same way as they do in these games. I forget what they said yesterday during the game, the Cincinnati game. They're like, "Oh, Baltimore is one of the least penalized teams in the league." No shit. Who do you think cuts the biggest checks to Roger Goodell? It's Steve Bisciotti. And who else is? What is it? Clark Hunt. So it makes sense, don't it? And who doesn't get any calls? Oh, I know. It matches this color, and there's gold on their in uniforms too. But speaking of that team, Nate held on or did what they had to do yesterday afternoon, knocks off the Arizona Cardinals, sends Cliff Kingsbury and all of his hair products to TV or to a eventual college job. And they are going to have a matchup against the Seahawks for a third time this year. Last time they played them, they went into Seattle, once a place that was absolute scary scenario. And I think 2019, in that last game when Dre Greenlaw made that stop, I mean, it may have been the year before because they beat him the year before and they were trashed with Nick Mullins. And
Kyle
I think,
Shanahan figured something out, Philip. I really think that the biggest thing that happened is, while Jim Harbaugh never figured out that beast, I think Kyle Shanahan figured out Pete Carroll. And I
yeah,
think that it helps that their roster isn't as good as it's been.
Mhm.
I think that when you continue to play the same cover 3 every single year and your talent isn't getting any better, minus, of course, Tariq Woolen and Diggs is, they're decent football players, right? But like Richard Sherman's never walking through that door again.
No.
Cam Chancellor never walking through that door. Herb Thomas, like those guys are never coming back, right? And so
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan has figured out how to exploit them, and he's shown it now multiple times. They've really just taken him to the woodshed twice this year. Once with a rookie quarterback in like what his second start of his career,
Yep.
and they should have blown him out even worse. There was a bad call on Bosa that brought back an interception touchdown or a fumble touchdown or something like that, and then they got a garbage time touchdown when the Niners were like, okay, we're just gonna play prevent to get the out of here.
Yeah.
And so you know, Seattle is so insignificant. I texted a lot of people. I don't know how many people know, but I used to live in Seattle. I lived there for 4 years. I worked in sports radio there, and so I
Oh
know a
wow.
lot of radio hosts out there. And so as soon as it became official that it was Seattle, I texted almost everyone I know, and I said, "How do you feel about this game?" And everyone's like, "We're not gonna win." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're not gonna win, you insignificant peons. Like, you have no chance against us." And it's funny because like Seattle fans are so weird. They're like, "Oh, we're just happy to be here." It's like, you don't want to win? Like, you don't care about winning? Like, you want to lose to the 49ers a third time this year?
They're the same fans that talk. They're like, "Oh, we're the biggest fan base. We're the 12s and all that." They stole that from A&M. But the fact is, "Oh, we're the biggest fan base." They feed the sound into the stadium, all this crap, and they want to talk about how they're legit fan base. The Niners fan base is, when we want to really talk about America's team, there's two teams that I can think of: Pittsburgh Steelers, number one, and the 49ers. Not those frauds in
You're
Frisco.
you're forgetting about a third team that's America's team, and that's Jacksonville.
Okay. They're working on it. I mean, there are plenty of ladies that love
You,
Trevor Lawrence's
you
hair.
can't tell me
So
after watching that national anthem with all the American flags and all that, and the guy at the field that that's not America's team. Okay?
No, Josh, I love being reminded of the fact that your fans wore clown costumes to the final
Yeah.
game of the year
yeah,
last year where
he
you made
did.
Carson
He
Wentz
was
look like a little girl. And then
he
this
he did
year,
too.
Well,
this
no, I
year,
wasn't at that
you
game
guys
last
clinched
year,
at home.
but yeah, that
I
was
just think that's hilarious. Is that if
yeah.
that's not the epitome of what Jacksonville football is, I can't think of anything better in my life than that. The fact that last year they wore clown costumes in their final game,
Oh
and
no, I
this year
mean,
they're
yeah,
going
I mean, we got
crazy.
some great fans, and I mean, like 2017, like the home game against the Titans, like a bunch of fans at the tailgate like jumped in a pool of mayonnaise because I guess like apparently there's this like photo out there of like a Tennessee Titans fan just like gobbing up mayonnaise by the hand or something like that, and so they're just
Uh,
it's like a inside joke or meme or something in the Jags fan community, and so that one tailgate they just jumped in
Disgusting.
mayonnaise.
oh,
That's
okay. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, that and the Buffalo Bills fans jumping through tables. I mean, the
well,
Yeah.
AFC is just different, Philip. They're just different out there in the
yeah.
AFC.
The Cincinnati Bengals fans, they all are on K Adams. There's the Chiefs fans, which are whatever.
The
The
Chiefs fans
fact
have
that,
nothing to worry about because every year they're gonna win that division for the
yeah,
rest of time.
a turn as long as Andrew Ryad and Kermit the Frog are there, I don't think they ever have to worry about losing anything.
The
That's
fact that
part
he
of it.
lost Tyreek Hill and that team is still the number 1 seed is it's absolutely
There
amazing.
should be an asterisk on that, but at least there will be a neutral site AFC Championship game if it works out that way.
Yeah.
So we'll that'll be the segue to the games. The first game, of course, we kind of talked about it there.
Yeah.
Nate got into it with Seattle and the Niners. I'm sure that the NFL wanted a certain team to get there with a certain ayahuasca drinking and smoking quarterback, but he couldn't beat the Detroit Lions last night. So the Niners are going to start the playoffs on Saturday against Seattle. 1 o'clock game on the West Coast, so it's actually it'll just be a short week, but fair for both teams. And I mean, you
I
don't have
mean,
to ask.
it's so
Yeah.
wild that this game so that here's the thing is like how often is the 2 seed play the first game of the playoffs? Because I've never seen that before. It
No.
just goes to show you that, like, outside of Seattle, this game and San Francisco, obviously, this game's getting no ratings. The Niners are -10 at home against a team that is a playoff team. Like, how often is that happening? And then you look over in Buffalo, they're the first game on Sunday, and they're -10.5. And it's just like, okay, so the NFL is either mad that the Seahawks and the Dolphins got in, or they realize that these games are going to be such ass whoopings that there's no point in even putting them in a time where people can watch them outside of the Pacific time zone.
Yeah. I think, but this is what I was going to make mention that the 4:30 Saturday slot was always the AFC South slot, mainly when the Houston Texans would win the division. So I'm like, oh yeah, Jacksonville and the Chargers will be there but they don't want to screw the Chargers over because they'd be coming from the West Coast. So in the end, they moved them to the 8 o'clock game for the intrigue because of two of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. Uh, and the fact is, yeah,
And one of the
I would.
dumbest head coaches in the NFL, Philip.
Oh yeah,
Think
no,
about the fact that he's an idiot. The Chargers head coach is the dumbest man on the planet.
I was
He's
saying
on
this to
something.
my buddy. I was saying this to one of my buddies who's a diehard. He's like a mentor to me. He's a journalist, whatever. He was in Buffalo, and I told him, I'm like, if the guy was, it's wrong to say this. But we get controversial here on this show. They fired coaches if they're a person of color for some of the calls that he's made over his 2 years as a head coach. He is atrocious. And it's not just that, but the fact is the Spanoses are one of the shittiest ownership groups in sports too. So you add those two things together, they don't deserve to uh have why am I for blanking now? They're Justin Herbert. They don't
Justin
deserve
Herbert,
to have
yeah.
him. They do not deserve to
No.
have him, but they do. So I mean, I think everybody is in agreement on the first game. We're pretty sure that Purdy can, in his first playoff start, kind of continue the mode, get CMC going, and now the balance between him and Debo, which is something we weren't able to see due to the injuries. Now those two guys together, plus GK, all those pieces on offense, and then of course the defense. I mean, whatever, the defensive player of the year, and one of the best. And now Greenlaw is going to be back. It looks like so. You'll have the combination, him and Fred Warner, the great combo. Reminds me of the days of Bowman or Willis and Bowman. Willis was my favorite defensive player ever. And there's a lot of vibes with that. Mooney Ward's going to be playing DK Metcalf, and he obviously got red ass from the last time Mooney Ward was covering him. So can only imagine what's going to happen this time. Hufanga hits like Troy Polamalu Jr., so he's probably going to take somebody's head off. It's going to be entertaining for Niners fans.
For
Jacksonville.
Niners fans, it'll be a blast because they're just gonna.
Yeah.
I think they're honestly just gonna destroy these guys. I think that they're gonna. It's one of those things, and I think someone was on Twitter the other day saying, oh well, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. Well, statistically, it's not. Statistically, it happens more than it doesn't happen. And I think last year when you talk about the Rams, that's a very
Yeah.
different thing. The second time the Niners played the Rams, they were down 17-0 and they barely won that game. They play them a third time at home, back in LA. The Rams are coming off a huge comeback win. I mean, that game was set up for disappointment for the 49ers. This is not. This is a
Yeah.
Seahawks team that barely squeaked in the playoffs, is playing Geno Smith at quarterback, and a defense that can't stop the run. If the 49ers lose this game, it's the worst loss in 49ers history because this team is so insuperior to the 49ers, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's been bad losses for all these 30 years. I've been a fan of the 49ers, but yeah, it really shouldn't be much of a contest there. But we'll see. It's the playoffs. You never know. And seeing Pete Carroll lose just makes me happy too. I don't know why, but it just does because he's a dick. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chargers, who also have a genius head coach. I mean, they fired what's his name, the guy. He's our offensive coordinator now too. That's what's funny about it.
Anthony
Their
Lynn.
former Anthony Lynn is the offensive coordinator for the 49ers, running backs coach, and I don't think he seems that bad these days. But I think it's because of who he's working with and for and an
Yeah.
actual franchise. But that is a good game. To be fair, should be tight. I think Trevor Lawrence he was on a heater there for about a month, 6 weeks. That was what I was able to ride into the playoffs and take that ride with him. Then he cooled off and it probably effed me over, but it's not. He still got in the playoffs, and now you have a test here against an interesting Chargers team. But the reality of the world is, you're home, you're going to be there. I figure it's going to be a nut house, and will Justin Herbert be able to execute to his weapons like he has all year? Austin Eckler, will he be able to run the ball? What are you thinking in regards to that? I mean, your defense has been playing great the last few weeks, Josh.
No, yeah, I mean, we've been playing great the last few weeks, but I mean, we've been also playing against the Texans, the Jets, and the Titans. And in between those games, we had the Cowboys, who, I mean, we got turnovers and got sacks against Dak Prescott and everything, but same time, I mean, he was able to dot us up in the first half of that game, and the first half, or late in that Cowboys game. And the reason why I bring that up is because, well, Justin Herbert. I mean, I think the Los Angeles Chargers. They're a really good passing attack on offense, and they've been able to move the ball pretty well throughout the year. When they're healthy, and they had a period where they weren't so healthy, and the first game that they played against the Jaguars, they had some injuries and stuff. With Keenan Allen, I think, was out in that game. Mike Williams wasn't really effective in that game. Justin Herbert himself, that was the game coming off of the Thursday night game against Kansas City, where he had the rib injuries and all that stuff. So just looking at that alone, it's not going to be the same as the first matchup, because I think they're a little bit healthier. Mike Williams, of course, coming off a injury or back spasms or whatever, so not really sure how it's going to be for him. But in this playoff matchup here, it's going to be interesting, because the Jaguars, they've been able to be good defensively against the teams that they should beat, but they've also been pretty leaky at times this year. So be interested to see how the Chargers can take advantage of the Jaguars matchups, and how they're able to take advantage of some of the issues that they had in coverage. And if they're able to protect Justin Herbert, they might be able to do that, because I think when Jaguars, when they have been able to get pressure or affect the quarterback, they just haven't been able to play as well defensively. So I think that's going to be key. There is the ability of Josh Allen, the good Josh Allen, by the way, and Trayvon Walker to go out and rush the passer. Arden Key as well, of course. You guys had him, last year in San Francisco, so he's been pretty effective for us this year. The linebackers, Foye Aluakon's been very good. Devin Lloyd, had a bit of a rookie struggle in the middle of the season, but he's starting to play well again. So I think those players are going to be key. And then Rayshawn Jenkins and Tyson Campbell on the back end, I think, and Andre Cisco as well. I think those guys are going to be key in the secondary. So defensively, it's going to be an interesting matchup there. And then on Jaguars on offense, they've been pretty good overall, I think, but I think the LA Chargers, they've had a good passing offense or defense as well, so it's going to be a tough matchup there. But they also have not as good run defense, I think. So I think if they're able to get Travis Etienne going a lot more, and even the Jermichael Hasty and Snoop Connor, maybe working some Trevor Lawrence read options or anything like that, zone reads. I think rushing attack might be the way to go here. So it's gonna be an interesting matchup. But I think it's gonna come down to the pass rush, I think, for Jacksonville, and then I think on offense to limit the turnovers because interceptions have not really been an issue for Trevor Lawrence this year, but fumbling has. So I think if he's able to protect the football and not fumble, whether that's in being in the pocket, passing, or handing it off to another running back. I think that's or wide receiver. If they do a reverse, so I think that's going to be a key there. And then also for the running backs themselves, because um, Travis Etienne has also had issues fumbling, getting hit, and everything throughout the year. So I think that's going to be important if they can protect the football there too. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting matchup, and I think across all the matchups this weekend, I think the Chargers and the Jaguars probably gonna be the best one out of them because I think you have two teams who are very similar, and there's not as much disparity as like you guys were talking about with the Seahawks and the 49ers, the Bills and the Dolphins, and I mean, even the Ravens and the Bengals, I think that's not going to be as close. Lamar Jackson's injured and everything. The Ravens have just not been effective overall this year, so I think that's not going to be a real good matchup. So, on at least on the AFC side, and plus you guys and the Seahawks. I mean, I think the Jaguars have the potential to have the best matchup, TV wise, at least this weekend. So it's going to be interesting. Of course, I'll be there. My brother, who's a Chargers fan, because we used to live in San Diego for a couple years, he'll be there with me. So should be an interesting game, and be excited to watch it and everything. So hopefully, the Jaguars win. Be a awkward car ride either way, I think, on the way home. So we'll see what happens. But excited and glad to have playoff football back in Jacksonville for sure.
Yeah, that'll be interesting for sure. I was worried about that last week. We talked about that on the show, that if it had went sideways, I wasn't sure if you were gonna you were gonna show up. Uh, but it didn't, so you were good. And I mean, the reality is it should be a good game. I do agree. And we'll see what happens with that. We'll talk about it on episode 152. So Buffalo and Miami, we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. It's not going to be Dan Marino. We know that. Or Bob Greasy. Is it? Are they going to put Tua Tagovailoa and his scrambled eggs out there? Are they going to put Teddy Bridgewater with four fingers out there? Are they going to put Skylar Thompson, who led that amazing? I mean, to be honest, the Jets defense is really good, but the Jets offense is atrocious. The fact is they've been a dumpster fire ever since Tua got hurt again. And the notion is Miami beat Buffalo in Miami early in the season in a shootout. The second game in Buffalo, Tua was also playing. It was a close game. If Tua plays, don't really know that it could be a close one. If he doesn't play, I have a very hard time believing that they will be in that contest. Do you guys have anything else that you see that may stand out in regards to it?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if Tua doesn't play, it's done. Like they have to have Tua Tagovailoa play. Like they have not shown that they're able to win against actual good teams without Tua, and whether or not Tua is a good quarterback or not, it's just he works better in that system. My thing is, and I guess the one thing I'll say, and this is the same thing for the Ravens that you'll talk about is if the quarterback isn't healthy enough and he's going to affect his life in any long-term way by playing football on Sunday, just don't do it. Just don't do it because it's not worth it. Like it's just one playoff game. You're going to get plenty of games in your career. Maybe Tua not so much. I don't know what's going to happen with him. There's some scary stuff going on with him, but yeah, if he doesn't play though, they're screwed.
Yeah. Josh?
No, yeah, I mean, I agree too. Like, I think especially for Tua, I think he's got to protect his long term health. I mean, Lamar Jackson's got to protect his health either, but I think Tua, with the concussions and everything, there's just a lot of risk, and he's already had 3 concussions now this season, which I think is abnormal
Or
for
listed.
a quarterback to have. So I think from that standpoint alone, I think you should just shut him down for the year and just take the L. I think the goal for a team every year is to at least, I mean, they say to make the Super Bowl, but really what keeps them going is to make the playoffs and be competitive. And they were able to be competitive for the most part this year, and they made the playoffs. So, they achieved their goal. I mean, they're going to lose big time on Sunday to the Bills. So, I mean, bet on that if you want. I don't know, but I think the Bills are going to be a lot better team. I think the Dolphins, without Tua, it's just not going to be a good matchup overall. Even with the weapons that they have with Jalen Waddle and with
Tyreek
Tyreek Hill and Mike
and the
McDaniel. Yeah,
49ers running backs.
yeah. I mean, they're trying
And
to
the
become 49ers of South Florida,
East.
East, I
Yeah.
guess, East South Florida, whatever.
Yeah.
But and I like Mike McDaniel. He's got that. He's somehow like got the energy of both a Chad and a dork at the same time, and it's so funny. So, I think he's going to be there for a long time, and I like him as a coach. But just in this game alone, I think they're just not going to be able to match up against the Bills that well. So, yeah, that's pretty much going to be a blowout game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for McDaniel to go and get him after all the craziness from and the collusion and the tampering that the Miami Dolphins did, getting rid of Brian Flores to now get back in the playoffs without really having a quarterback for a few games this season. Credit to him on that. We'll see what they're going to do. There's a lot of questions. You mentioned Lamar Jackson. Of course, there's other questions with a certain GOAT quarterback that those two might be in play for Miami too. So something we'll see after the season. The next game is an interesting one. The Vikings have kind of been playing with fire all year. Most of their games have come down to last second victories. The game against the Giants was no different. They needed Greg Joseph to kick a 61-yarder to win. Uh, they said here it's the first time they've had a playoff game in Minnesota since the Minneapolis Miracle. And I was there at home, and then I was there somehow or another, just through sheer luck and whatever, when the Patriots and Eagles were able to be there a few weeks later. The fact is, the Minnesota Vikings have a new coach, Kevin O'Connell. They've been able to kind of do it with smoke and mirrors. Yes, Justin Jefferson is one of the best players in the league. I get it. Dalvin Cook, when he can stay upright, is one of the better running backs in the league. Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. I don't know how. I mean, he literally is like toast. I think he literally is like dry toast with bad butter on it. Like, I don't know what you really think at the end of the day. Does anybody really think that isn't a Minnesota Vikings fan that they're going to win? They'll win this game. Okay, fine. I think the Giants are going to have a lot of fight. Yesterday, they played Davis Webb, whoever he is, and he almost came back against the first string Philadelphia Eagles when they had five guys that used to work at Caldor and Bradley's as an offensive line, and then some running back that was probably in the USFL last year. And then they still almost came back against the number one seed in the NFC.
I think that says more about the Eagles than anything, to be honest with you. I've been on Twitter calling them the Cupcakes because I think they are the Philadelphia Cupcakes. They haven't played anybody. Jalen Hurts rarely throws for more than 300 yards a game. If you stop their run, they're pretty one-dimensional. And their defense, while it has a decent pass rush and has some decent players on defense, they can't stop anybody. I mean, you're allowing Davis Webb to score a touchdown to Kenny Golladay, who hasn't played a game all year. Davis Webb was a Cal Bears quarterback who wasn't very good. I think he's their third string backup. And Darius Slay is allowing Kenny Golladay, who hasn't played all year, to score a touchdown on him. I mean, if anything, this speaks. I think the Giants are scrappy, and I think they're going to beat the Vikings personally. But I think that this speaks so much about the Eagles and how they are the Philadelphia Cupcakes. And if they play the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, those fans will be walking out of the stands just like they did last year, week 2, when we embarrassed them out of the building. I just don't think the Eagles are that good. I really think that this is the 49ers division this is the 49ers NFC to lose. And I think that the Giants kind of exposed the Eagles a little bit in a game they had to win. They
Yeah.
rushed Jalen Hurts back. And some Eagles fans were like, oh, well, we didn't run Jalen Hurts. There's clearly highlights of Jalen Hurts running the ball in that game yesterday. So
Yeah.
I don't know what your excuse is for your first string defense and offense and quarterback who was runner-up to Mahomes for MVP, only scoring 22 points on a bunch of backups. But it is a terrible look for the Eagles. I know we're not talking about the Eagles, but golly, I can't wait to see them get exposed in the playoffs. It's going to be
Yeah.
so fun.
And the Minnesota Vikings are another team, a team we're going to talk about here next, or no, in a couple of teams or a couple of games we're going to talk about another team that was exposed pretty badly yesterday. I honestly think the Giants, I agree, the Giants have a good chance to go to Minnesota and win that game. They were in that game. They played a really good one. They are playing with, wide receivers that nobody's heard of. They have Saquon out there. If they can control the time of possession, Daniel Jones doesn't turn the ball over, this is the best year he's had in his career. That way, Brian Daboll, that whole Buffalo regime coming down to New Jersey to take over the Giants, they've done a really good job, and the defense is tough too. So they're playing with house money, to be honest.
Yeah.
If they lose, it's not that big of a deal in their mind because they have so much talent and they have a lot of capital. Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy that's going to build and get better. There are other pieces. Julian Love, who's one of the better safeties, tackling machines in the league. So, to be fair, they're playing with house money. The Minnesota Vikings are working. There's a lot of momentum working against them, and it's something that I don't know how they're going to fade it. They could fade it one time, but the last time they went to Santa Clara, Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, only threw the ball 11 times. And they had, I think they had Mostert and Wilson at running back. Now the Niners have Mr. Relevant and Christian McCaffrey. Good luck. If that happens again. Yeah, so
Vikings don't stand a chance if they play the 49ers. A friend of mine, Jesse Naylor, said to me, the 49ers might actually have the easiest path to the NFC Championship I've ever seen in my entire life. They play the Seahawks, who shouldn't even be there, and they play the Vikings, who, I mean, they are the most paper tiger football team I've ever seen. Because if you stop Jefferson, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Can't do
That's
anything.
their whole entire offense. That's literally their whole
Exactly.
entire offense. You throw the ball. That's what the Raiders became for like 2 weeks. Well, that was what the Raiders did against the Niners to wake them up. Was that idiot Stidham threw every ball to Devontae Adams, and it's like, oh yeah, one of the best players in the league is going to catch the ball most of the time if he can get his hands on it. Derek Carr did the same thing. But the problem was their offense is a disaster area. Their line sucks. Yes, you have a great running back that's going to make a decent amount of money on free agency, and you have Devontae Adams. They made Derek Carr the scapegoat for the fact that they're a shitty franchise, but that's beside the point. The Sunday night football game, not surprised about that. I figured that would be the one. Joe Burrow, the third of the big three in the AFC quarterbacks, the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals will be hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Will Lamar Jackson play? Will Tyler Huntley play? I'm thinking they do not want to play whoever the hell that guy was yesterday, but he didn't. He wasn't god awful, but he put up some
fumbled the
sort
ball
of
twice in his own end zone almost. Like the Bengals weren't even that impressive in that game, to be honest with you, because I think that they should have blown out that team way worse on offense. but the Ravens, came to play a little bit. That guy it wasn't dog doo, right? But he wasn't
Yeah,
good either.
yeah,
If Lamar plays, this could get a little dicey. I know Lamar's coming off of 5 weeks of not playing, but Lamar Jackson is special. He's unbelievable, and I think that if there's any guy who can come in and just give the Bengals hell, it's him. And I'd love to see it just because the Bengal fans, I don't know if you noticed, are very cocky because they
mm,
beat the Chiefs and they were thinking they were going to beat the Bills before that disaster happened. And
yeah.
so, I'd like to see the Bengals just get a little bit, just a little lower, just like not be so cocky all the time. I understand you have Joe Burrow and he's very good, but he's not Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And
Oh yeah.
and he's got the whole Joe Cool exterior and the cigar smoking and all that stuff. So he's Mr. Ohio. So at the end of the day, it's he's got the similar vibe to
Yeah.
Trevor in Jacksonville. He fits there. Josh Allen
Totally.
fits in Buffalo. Joe Burrow definitely fits in Ohio. And the fact that the Cleveland Browns are a disaster, it makes Cincinnati even better. Now, the
Yeah.
funny part is going to be when Mike Brown doesn't pay him, and then he goes somewhere else, and then the team goes into oblivion. That's when then that stadium will not last. They'll probably knock it down if they don't sign him back because they'll have to give him $350 million. But yeah, what do you think of Josh in regards to this? I mean, Cincinnati, defending AFC champions, they didn't. To be honest, I get what Nate's saying. I do agree, and I paid the price for it. The productivity of Cincinnati late in the season really wasn't there. I mean, Burrow did his thing to get them in that position, and it looked like he was in a good position prior to the untimely events last Monday night. But I mean, Baltimore is it's really about Lamar. If he's not there, how are they really going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals? Yes, their defense has holes, especially in the secondary. They have good safeties, but the corners aren't good. One of them's Eli Apple. That kind of is part of it. But then they have good linebacker play, defensive line, two good ends. The reality is that front seven is good. Baltimore is a run first team. Greg Roman's imaginative offense. Another guy I don't like because I get PTSD from some of those games during the Harbaugh era, and his obsession with Michael Crabtree. But what are they going to do? I mean, if they don't have Lamar Jackson, let's just say that they do. Now, we'll just put it as a hypothetical. If they do have him there, Nate, I think, is onto something that it should be a closer contest. Even though they get wide receivers from Walmart and running backs. They draft running backs and they get wide receivers from Walmart. But the notion is he may not play because he's going to be a free agent. And Baltimore is already putting things out in the media saying he's lazy. So it's like, okay, you don't want the guy. Who are you going to get? You're going to play Tyler Huntley? Let's see if Tyler Huntley goes out there. I mean, stranger things have happened in the playoffs, but I have a hard time believing that Burrow is going to lose at home on Sunday Night Football against a division rival after, they almost got into a coin flip situation with them. But I don't know. What are you thinking?
I mean, no, I agree with you, and I think really the key is I think Lamar is going to play. I think it's hard not to play him. I think he's going to want to play in the playoff game. Yeah, there is the situation with his contract and everything because they haven't locked him up, right? And he's basically betting on himself, and so I think he might want to play in this playoff game because it would be good for him. Minus the injury risk, it's good for him because the contract it might put more leverage in his favor in the contract side. But on the football side of things, I think for Lamar, I think the key is to keep him contained in the pocket and make him be a passer. And I think over the years since he came onto the league, that's kind of been the formula to stopping him. And he's been really I mean he's improved as a passer, but I still think to make him be a passer, you got to contain him in the pocket and make tight window throws for him that he has to make and really test him as a accurate throw of the ball, and keep keep the middle of the field close, and keep the sidelines closed, and make it really tough for him to really move the ball. And they don't really have a whole lot of weapons, like you said. I mean the only real offensive pass catching weapon that they have is Mark Andrews.
Andrews.
They've got some good tight ends there, but and Andrews as well, but they don't really have any real wide receivers, like you said. And pretty much their whole thing is designed against as the running game, and that's their whole formula with Lamar, is to um be a running football team, which I don't mind. I mean, I like running the football better than passing, but I think the way that his playing style is, the way you got to stop them is to stop the runs. So I mean, I think the Bengals, I mean, I haven't really seen too much of them, this season. So, I can't really like tell you, and honestly, like how they are as a defense. But offensively, I think they're going to be a better team than the Bengals, and I think I think that's what you got to do to win this game. And the Bengals, or the Ravens, sorry, they've had a lot of issues on defense, especially when games are close. We saw it with the Jaguars Week 12, and Trevor Lawrence comeback victory there, and they were pretty soft on defense in that game, and they've had many defensive breakdowns throughout the entire season. So if they have a close game like this again, I don't think the Ravens really have the ability to, based on what we've seen throughout the year, to stop Joe Burrow if it comes to that situation. And I mean, I think it'll be a close game. Like, it'll have the feeling of a close game, but I think in the end, it'll probably be at least a 10-point victory for the Bengals.
Yeah, and the thing is, what is it? Last year, Burrow was just throwing darts. Him and Chase were playing, uh, two ball, and he was just throwing to him 1-on-1 double coverage. And generally, he struggles against the Baltimore Ravens, or he has over his career. But if the wide receivers are able to get the room, which they had to a point yesterday, and Hayden Hurst looked like it was easy, what he was doing. Now, of course, they weren't playing full out, but I think the loss of Wink Martindale, people don't look at that, but you look at how the Giants are playing on defense, and you see some of the issues they've had on defense this year. The Wink Martindale loss has played a big role too in why Baltimore is kind of where they are, but they still made the playoffs. Uh, the last one, of course, which is the freaking Cowgirls and the Buccaneers, the Niners. There's probably the one of either that winner or Minnesota will come to Santa Clara more than likely in the second week. Um, Dak Prescott looked like steaming hot garbage yesterday against the Washington General Redskin Commanders, and then they let Sam Howell go run roughshod on them. They had no running backs, Washington. They were just strictly doing, I think they were running the run and shoot or some semblance of one, and they couldn't stop it. They lost to a third string quarterback. I mean, it's funny. We keep on mentioning third string quarterbacks, but the Niners have a third string quarterback, but I guess theirs is just way better, or the coaching is way better because the third string quarterback is able, but it also helps this whole Shanahan Lynch regime, the amount of injuries at the quarterback position. I think they finally figured out, oh, we need 3 of them, and maybe 4. So it's like, okay, we'll be prepared. But in terms of what happened to Dallas, they were god awful yesterday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't bother to play really, and hence the Atlanta Falcons were able to win. Arthur Smith is a terrible coach. I don't know. He really ought to not be employed. He should go back to Tennessee where he belongs with Mike Vrabel. I do think Ritter has a chance to be good.
Both of these teams are pretty terrible. Like,
Oh,
in the
yeah.
grand scheme of things, like Tampa, do you remember when Brock Purdy, his first start, just murdered Tampa for like 3 quarters to the point where they stopped playing?
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas literally just lost to the Washington Commanders, who the 49ers absolutely trounced. And it was in a game where, like, Dallas had something to play for, right? Dallas was not just be like, okay, let's just kind of sleepwalk through a game. If they won that game and the Eagles lost, they won the division, and the Philadelphia Eagles would have to go there at some point. It's just like, I don't know what's going on with the NFC, man. Like, these teams are just not good. And this game is, probably the closest game, but it's also the two worst teams, I think, in the whole entire playoffs. I mean, maybe Seattle, obviously, but like, these two teams are both awful. The only reason that I think the Bucks might win is because Tom Brady, for some reason, always finds a way to win at least one playoff game.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Josh? I mean, I agree that the GOAT somehow backdoored a way into the playoffs yet again. The notion is we don't know what's going on, where he's going to go. I have a hard time believing he'll have a better situation offensively in terms of skill position players because of the amount of running backs they're able to get. And then you have two great wide receivers. I don't think you're going to find two great wide receivers at many other stops. Maybe Miami, of course, but we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Dallas. The thing with them is Dak Prescott turning the ball over. If he keeps on doing that, they ain't winning the game anyway. But Tampa Bay has been really awful at times this year too. It's the whole box office aspect of all the people who think Cowboys are worth watching, and Jerry Jones and his stupid racist being, and then the fact that Tampa Bay is a GOAT is why they're on Monday Night Football. But it's like sounds like a one and done situation for whoever wins that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be an interesting matchup, and I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. And we go back to week 1. Dak broke his thumb and was out until week 7, and then ended up being a blowout victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that was a not really exciting game to watch. I remember watching that game, and Tom Brady was just not really that good that entire game. And they just ended up. I mean, I don't really remember exactly how the game played out, but Tom just wasn't his usual self that we're accustomed to seeing. And you could tell there that whatever it is, whether it's age finally catching up to him, or just like the team beginning to fall apart in general, right? Because they basically built for a Super Bowl and a repeat run the last 2 years, and now things are starting to fall apart for them. Just it's gonna be it's either gonna be a blowout game or it's gonna be a very tight game, I think. And I mean, it could be tight based on how the Cowboys have played recently. I mean, of course, they got destroyed by the Washington Commanders, but I mean, I also in the fact Dak threw interceptions in that game, and like you said, had a pick 6 and everything. But I mean, you look at the games before that, because I kind of don't count Week 18 just because like things it's kind of an anomaly in Week 18, and they didn't really have much to play for. But the Cowboys, they've been pretty good overall in most of their games this season. And I mean, even without Dak Prescott, they were still able to go to a 5-2 record before he came back. So they've been pretty good on defense when when things have gone their way. And could see that happen here again on Monday night. But Tom Brady's Tom Brady, and like you said, he always figures out a way to win, and it's rare for him to go out on a one and done type playoff loss. And we only seen that like once in the last several years. Of course, the final game that he ended up playing for the New England Patriots ended up being a one and done against the Tennessee Titans back in 2019. But if Tom's not able to get protected and he gets sacked a lot, I mean, it's gonna just be a really awful game for him. And I could definitely see being a blowout for the Cowboys. But the defensively, the Bucks, they've been kind of up and down, I think, throughout the year. And of course, they had the big loss to you guys, earlier in the year to the 49ers. So there's a lot of issues, throughout the Buccaneers organization. But I mean, the last couple of weeks, they've kind of started to look like their former selves. Mike Evans and Tom Brady finally put it together 2 weeks ago, and a lot of fantasy owners who faded Evans throughout the year. Either they got destroyed, or their faith was rewarded finally in Evans. So we'll see how that connection pairs well if it does pair well on Monday night. But it should be an interesting game. And could be Tom Brady's final game ever as an NFL player. We'll see, or if he decides to continue playing forever, like he has said numerous times. So it's going to be a interesting matchup. And by the way, Tom Brady had a losing record as a quarterback this year.
Yep.
And does he finish his career with a losing record, or is he able to at least win one more game and even it out a little bit? So that's another
Well,
thing to keep in mind.
he would have to
Someone
keep
will pay
on
him.
winning too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Someone's gonna pay him to be their quarterback. Teams are way too desperate for quarterbacks. There's too many teams that need quarterbacks for him not to go somewhere and play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to stop playing.
Yeah.
That's why he got divorced. He wants, and there's somebody who's going to break him off just for the fact that they know that they're going to get the
Exactly.
box office aspect of it. Now, going on the other side of that is, of course, today is Black Monday, where coaches get fired. I'm the days of both of our teams having something to do with Black Monday. Those days, thankfully, are gone, I think, for both of our franchises. But it isn't for the Houston Texans. Lovie Smith went off script and won that game against the horrendous Indianapolis Colts and lost the number one pick in the process. That's one. Cliff Kingsbury, I've mentioned multiple times, got canned today. Then you have the guys that were let go prior to the firings today. You have Nathaniel Hackett, who might have been one of the worst head coaches in the history of professional sports. But to be fair, I watched his dad coach, and I knew his dad sucked too. So I'm not really surprised. And to be fair, let's say this: don't listen to MVP quarterbacks going and like upselling or putting over their coaches, because Peyton, the what do you call the gun, whatever, I forget what the general, or what, I forget what Peyton Manning was called, or what Gruden called him, but
The sheriff.
the sheriff, whatever, yeah. And he put over who was that scary, that freaky-eyed monster that coached in Miami and then went to the Jets.
Adam Yates.
He might have been one of the worst coaches in the history of sports. And that was the reason he got 2 jobs, was because of Peyton. Nathaniel Hackett will go back. He'll probably follow Aaron wherever he goes next, but he was a disaster. It helps that he had a poser at quarterback that got paid $250 million. But you have Walmart money, so it doesn't really matter who they get. It seems like there's a lot of people that are interested in that job. You also have the Carolina Panthers, who fired Matt Rule very early in the year, allowed him to go and get a college job and start that again. He's going to be about the 18th guy that has tried to come and make Nebraska relevant again. Let's see if that happens. And then the other coaches, of course, it was Indianapolis. And they don't have a quarterback. They haven't had a quarterback since Andrew Luck. So those are 5. I guess what I'll put out to the panel is, do we see other ones that could possibly happen? Say the Washington General Redskin Commanders, or
Fire the
perhaps
Chargers head coach right now.
Yeah,
before he plays the Jaguars. Honestly, like, that guy's an idiot. Mike Williams might not get to play against the Jaguars because he is such an idiot playing them against the Denver Broncos when they literally couldn't move up or down by winning that game. Like, how stupid are you?
Yeah.
Mike Williams is one of the most important players on your team.
And he has an injury history too.
Exactly.
And you didn't. Yeah, I mean that is bad.
That guy should be fired right now before he plays the Jaguars. I don't know. I understand, like, he has to go play the Jaguars. They have to finish the season. But, like, when they lose to the Jaguars, that guy should get fired the next day.
He won't.
Damn.
Because it's the Chargers. It is the Chargers. And that's why they are what they are. Yeah, that's why they're the Jets of the LA in that building. The way that the Jets used to be at Giants Stadium. I think, yeah, that's a good call there with whatever his name is.
Brandon Staley.
Brandon Staley. Yeah, fuck him. He's another dumbass from Sean McVay's tree. Sean McVay
He's gonna
sounds like
retire.
yeah,
He's gonna retire. He has
he's gonna
to.
rage quit. He's gonna rage quit because he can't deal with the 84-year rebuild that
Yeah.
will be the LA Rams. Um, and I guess he also can't deal with the fact that more fans for the other team show up to his home stadium too, which I mean that's really
He
not.
won the Super Bowl for them. He won the Super Bowl, and the fans still don't go to the games. It's
He made 2
insane.
Super Bowls.
There's
He
more
made-
Georgia fans that flew from Georgia to come to the game in the Rams stadium than the fans who live in the same town that the team plays in. How wild is that?
Yeah, I
That's
remember those
crazy.
days. I remember those days for the Niners when we were in the dumps, but my God, it wasn't that egregious. Like, even at Levi's, they could at least have a 50-50, even when the Niners are god awful. In this case, the Rams can't, neither team that plays in that stadium can get anybody to show up. But then that's the LA thing. They always justify it. The Dodgers have been good for God knows how many years. They can't get their fans to show up. But now that the Lakers suck, they don't have to feel bad about it anymore.
The Clippers don't have any fans.
Yeah, well, the Clippers have never had any fans, to be fair, other than
That is
Penny Marshall and Billy Crystal. Other than
Yeah.
that, I don't really remember any other people that have said, "Oh man, I'm a LA Clippers fan." It's the same way as me going and copying to being a fan of the Knicks. I don't want anyone to know I'm a fan of the Knicks. It's embarrassing. Ever since the year 2000, how bad the Knicks have been and how bad Jim Dolan is as an owner. Oh yeah, he owns the Great Western Forum too now, and I think he was trying to sell that in part of the deal to go and build the new arena. There's some deal. I'm forgetting who is connected. I think Ballmer or the guy who owns the LA Clippers made a deal with Jim Dolan so he could go and build a stadium over there to get away from the Lakers. But that's beside the point. I think we mentioned 2 other coaches. I mean, Belichick this year definitely is one of the worst years of his illustrious coaching career. I don't think he's going to stop. He can't stop, really. I think he's trying to groom Steve to take over, really, if what's his name, the owner, would allow that. But is there anybody else that, I mean, I think Dallas, but then Dallas
Should.
is, yeah,
Dallas should.
I mean,
won't.
they because Sean Payton's out there. And Sean Payton,
I think Sean
it's been
Payton's
this,
going to. I really think he's going to go to the Broncos. I think that that's a match made in heaven. I understand, like, we think Russell Wilson's kind of a fraud after this year, but I think that Sean Payton knows how to make a small quarterback work. And I think that with Russell Wilson, I think the thing that people never really understood is how much Pete Carroll did for him. Sean Payton will do everything for Russell Wilson. He will do every small thing for him. I think that that's a match made in heaven. If the Broncos lose out on Sean Payton, it's like the biggest bumble that an organization has made in a while, because that's the perfect situation for Russell Wilson.
yeah, but they don't have any capital to give up for Sean Payton because they've given away 86 draft picks to the Seattle Seahawks.
Do
So
they have to give the Saints picks for him?
they have to give some sort of compensation because of Sean
He's
Payton
still under
having
contract.
2 more years under contract.
I do.
So that's something to see. I mean, I mentioned the Atlanta Falcons. They really ought to, but they won't. I think the most, I mean, definitely Ron Rivera is going to get sent because they justify whatever. I mean, Ron Rivera, God love him, he was a player, he played, and I think he won a Super Bowl somewhere along the line, and
Yeah, for
he's a great
Chicago.
man, and he's gone, for Chicago, and part of the '85 Bears, and he's a great man, and he's gone through so much, and he's had to put up with so much in his head coaching career. But good Lord, you have to know that you're in a playoff situation. If you lose, you're going to be knocked out. I mean, Jesus. I get your work for Dan Snyder, but that's Dan Snyder level terrible. That's crazy knuckleheaded terrible. How the hell do you not know that you could get eliminated? I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, nobody wants that job. Let's be fair. Nobody wants that job. You couldn't hire a random coach, maybe Cliff Kingsbury. You could hire him and do it, and it won't make a damn difference anyway. But it's like, who the hell wants that job until they change owners? But
Yeah.
that's one.
I think
Anything else?
this year's coaching carousel and this year's quarterback carousel will be very, very interesting. I think it's gonna
Yeah.
be really fun to see where everyone goes, where all these quarterbacks go, where Jimmy Garoppolo plays
Mhm.
will be the most interesting thing of the offseason because I think when he loses Kyle Shanahan doing literally everything for him, people are gonna be like, "Oh crap, he actually wasn't that good." And then we're gonna be like, "We told you. We told you for years. We told you." And
Well,
so, what?
no, you can go ahead.
Oh no, and then and Brady and there's just so many teams need a quarterback, and there's only so many quarterbacks available in the draft, and it looks like the Texans and the Colts will be those teams unless someone trades up with the Cardinals, the Bears.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you really want to take a flyer on Will Levis, go for it. That's fine. But there's two guys, in my opinion, that are draftable in this draft, and that's
Yeah.
Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And if
Yeah.
you're getting anyone else other than that, you probably aren't getting a guy who's going to start next year.
Or shouldn't start.
Well, shouldn't start. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
We'll
should
see.
not start
Yes.
Anthony Richardson for sure. Do not
Yeah.
start him.
Golly,
He's not ready.
he is a disaster,
Yeah.
man.
So
I mean,
I
I'm
can't
a
believe
UF
he
guy,
declared.
so I know.
I can't believe he declared. I was surprised.
why would
Eh.
you declare when you have the money that or whatever they call the ROI or whatever they
You
have?
mean the NIL?
NIL, whatever. There's all kinds of acronyms for
I
everything.
mean,
The
yeah.
NIL, you get paid, you can get broke off to go and play, and you can transfer every year. It seems like I don't know how many guys have transferred like 3 times to go and
Can't believe
get cash.
the Southern Carolina guys declared. What's his name? Ritter? No, not Ritter. He used to play for Oklahoma. And then
Oh,
went to
that
Southern
guy.
Carolina.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler.
Spencer
Spencer
Rattler.
Rattler.
Yeah.
Oh
Why
yeah,
is that guy declaring?
I mean, you got to
maybe
take
he'll go
advantage
to
of the
Washington.
opportunity. That's what it is. You got to take advantage of the opportunity while you have it. I mean, yeah, you have the NIL and everything, but it doesn't compare to NFL money. And they have
That guy's never gonna
the
play.
potential and
Ever.
everything. So I mean, yeah, but their quarterback is overdrafted, and they're going to be
Totally
sold
agree.
by their
You're right.
agent and everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he's a good athletic talent. So is Anthony Richardson. It's hard not to take the if you're a quarterback desperate team to try to take a shot at somebody with that type of talent, and might need a year or two of refining or whatever, and see what happens. And I mean, I'll say for Richardson, I mean, if he's had some pretty good balls that he threw this year, but the other times where he's really bad. So I mean, if he can figure it out, he might be really good in the NFL with his athleticism. But just the amount of quarterbacks that could be drafted. Yeah, I agree with you. Only two of them, C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young.
Yeah, those are and even with Chicago's moving up, I don't know who would be willing to give up that bounty to go to Chicago.
Who has that
And
bounty?
yeah, nobody really has that anymore. I mean, we saw what Philly had to do years ago for Wentz. We've seen it over the years.
The Jets
Chicago,
should do it. If there's any team that should do it, it should be the Jets. But they won't do it, I don't think. They're not smart enough to.
the Jets are going to sign a veteran, and that's one of the teams that Garoppolo would be in play with. I think. I mean, there's 3 that come to mind immediately: the Jets, the Raiders, and New England. Those are the 3
If they
because
move
they're
off
all
Mike Jones,
connections. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because Mac Jones is a tool, and he's mediocre. And so, uh, I think so. I mean, that's a whole other thing with that. I mean, I think some of the coaches before we move on and let you go, Nate. I know we kept you on here for a little over an hour, so I think, of course, Harbaugh, because now he's getting investigated for improprieties. That's usually when coaches decide, oh, I need to leave college. It's kind of like how Urban Meyer was getting investigated again. And then all of a sudden, oh, I want to try to be an NFL coach because I'm an arrogant prick and I think I can do
No,
it.
that's where he
And
fakes
then,
a heart attack.
oh no, that's the heart problems always come up. That's my favorite part. Oh man, I have heart problems. Oh shit, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with the stress. 3 months later, oh, what college job is open? Oh, I'll go there. So that was his gimmick. Harbaugh's one. course, Peyton is the number one choice, but then Harbaugh is there. And then the one thing that's going to help, that has helped the Niners over the years, is their deep playoff runs. It's why it took Bob Saleh a while to leave. It's a reason why Mike McDaniel kind of sort of had to wait, but then Miami needed to save face with their hire because they shouldn't have fired Brian Flores. And then so they hired McDaniel. So in that sense, it took them a while to get those jobs. DeMeco Ryans, to be fair, he is a original Houston Texan. I think he played the vast majority of his career, if not his entire career, for Houston. But they keep on doing these one and dones. And to me, why would he already sees what stability is? Why would he go work for Nick Caserio, who in his time as the GM has fired 2 coaches already, and hired and fired 2 coaches? And Cal McNair is dumber than whatever a bale of hay. I mean, if his dad wasn't a rich oil tycoon, that dipshit he can't even screw in a light bulb without instructions. And you're going to go and he can't run a football team. We know that. Why would you want to coach there? At least there's some semblance of hope or whatever with the Jets, even though it's the Jets, or Miami, even though it's Miami. There is no hope in Houston.
I think Eric Bieniemy is gone this year out of Kansas City for sure. I think Eric Bieniemy will be a head coach.
I mean, I guess I can see that, but then I also see that why would he leave? Andrew Ryad.
Why did Daboll leave? Right? Daboll left.
No, he was due. I mean, he was due. He had waited a while. It fits your narrative there. He waited a while, and it worked out perfectly because he had the GM move down that he knew. You would need.
Bieniemy is going to be one of those guys that people want because they've seen the Kansas City Chiefs see so much success.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's not going to have Patrick Mahomes.
That's true. He's not.
I mean, can he make Bryce Young or CJ Stroud into Patrick Mahomes Jr.? Maybe, but I doubt it. It's
101.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking for a miracle there. If I was Eric Bieniemy, I'm playing the same role as what Todd Bowles did, and be a loyal soldier and play this out and wait for Andrew Ryad to say, "Hey, I'm good," and just take the job over. That's literally what I think he wants. He's gonna do, unless he's coerced with a lot of money to move elsewhere. I wouldn't want to take the Indianapolis job. That is really bad. Houston's a really bad situation. Washington would be a bad one. Dallas is a terrible one. There really aren't any good ones. The Arizona Cardinals are a rudderless ship too. I mean, like the only one.
Rams would be
the Rams would be horrendous. I think there's only 2 jobs that have some semblance of hope, and that's the 2 newest owners in the NFL. It's Denver and Carolina.
Yeah,
Carolina has a blank slate.
Could be something good. Yeah, I agree with you. Those are the 2 best jobs in the NFL right now.
So those are the ones that would be interesting. Maybe one of these coordinators goes there. Maybe they don't. I
want to see Russell Wilson play like Russell Wilson again. I want someone to come in, and I know we all hate him as Niner fans, but I think this year was kind of unfun to see. The fact that Seattle basically fleeced the Broncos. Like that sucked. We wanted to see the Seahawks get fleeced. We all want to see that, right? And so I'd love to see like someone come in and just make him look like a god again, and then because I think they traded 2 first-round picks, right? It was 2 firsts.
I think it was like 3. There was 2 1s, 2 2s.
I think
a 3 for Noah Fant.
I just love to see the Broncos screw them over next year, where they have a terrible first-round pick, not pick 5.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see more than anything. But
no, because they're going to trade it. They're going to trade down anyways, because that's what Seattle always does.
If they trot out Geno Smith again, it is going to be the funniest thing I've ever watched in my entire life.
He might win comeback player of the year.
Oh yeah, probably.
But
we all know he's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I'm happy for him as a person. He played good for a decent amount of the season, but it kind of started going away when the reality set in. And I think the reality will set in. The clock's going to strike on Saturday. Nate, thanks for coming on, man.
Pleasure.
Great to have you on. Promote whatever you want to promote. Where can we find you and read your content and all the stuff with 49ers?
I primarily just tweet stuff now. I do have a YouTube show that is currently on hiatus just because I'm really busy with some other stuff in life. But you can find me at 90849 on Twitter. Follow me there. I tweet a bunch of nonsense. If we get the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, I'm just going to tweet cupcakes for a whole week. So get ready for that. It's going to be super fun. And then since you guys are about to talk about racing, I just want to say go Mercedes. So I need Lewis Hamilton to wake the fuck up.
Well,
Hey, maybe Lewis can help the Broncos with their coaching hire.
He's a minority owner.
That
of
is
the Denver
true. You're
Broncos.
right. That's funny. All right, you guys have a great night.
Yeah,
All right,
thanks.
man. Take care. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talk about Mercedes coming back. Hopefully they will. I need that for my own interest in Formula One too. I think for the interest in Formula One in general. Okay, so let's one other piece of news here in terms of the football before we move on to racing again. As a fantasy football, the FallBrawl League, Wilson is now a 3-time winner of the league because my team shit the bed, in large part due to the quarterbacks not really having to play or not doing much, and then other players not showing up. Jeff, in his first year, Eagles fan, was a dominant presence, him and Wilson, but I was able to score the most points for this year and ended up losing to me in the semifinal, but he won a decent amount of money. Otherwise, Josh ends up finishing 4th in the league, so I think you're pretty consistent. You're in the playoffs every year, the 3 years you've been in there. And I think in some order, you're 2, 3, and 4. I think you're I think you finished third,
second,
then second,
third,
then
and
fourth.
Yeah.
That's not a good trend.
Yeah,
at
it's
least
not.
your actual team's trend is better than that. But I'd rather take your trend than what my recent record is. But yeah, Wilson won. Was it Steve ended up finishing 5th, and Professor J, after finishing 3rd, having the best year he's had in many years, he goes and lost to me as well in the first round, and I think that's one of the openings there. Have to confirm it. Might have. I'm assuming there's gonna be at least 2. I'm feeling 2 will happen, maybe more, but to be determined on that. But yeah, that was fantasy. It was fun. It was competitive. I just wanted to back into the playoffs. I had that feeling that, I could make a miracle run. It almost happened. I was able to do it twice, but the third time I wasn't able to. But to be fair, Wilson's team is probably the best team across the season. So credit to him. The belt will be adjusted accordingly. I just have to take the placard off and order a new one and put in the team names and all that. He's all alone in second place as a second winningest owner in FallBrawl history. The winningest guy is this guy. 5-time. I've wanted to be 7-time for a long time. I wanted to be 6-time, 7-time. We'll get there. I think Josh, you'll be, of course, in contention as always, but now both of us have more important things to worry about, which is our actual teams having a chance to go to Glendale here in a few weeks' time. So the big news in motorsports recently is Michael Andretti trying to somehow or another convince these assholes in Formula One, the owners and whoever, the people that run these teams, to convince them that they could actually be a viable candidate the irony is they're all this American centric. You have Liberty Media, who owns Formula One, American company. You have you have 3 Grand Prix in America. One, the Vegas thing is like a complete stunt. The Miami one is in a parking lot. It's a parking lot and they have a fake marina. The only one that's legitimate is Coda. You have this Drive to Survive thing, and there's all these people, content creators, they're from America. They only got in because they're because of Drive to Survive. You have Gene Haas, who's run a mediocre team in Formula One for the better part of, what is it now? This is going to be his 7th or 8th year, I think. I think it might be his 8th year in Formula One. And this year. And what significant things has that team ever done? And you have the guy that runs the team, Gunther Steiner, has made it clear over time that he doesn't believe in American drivers, doesn't want an American driver. Here's the thing about Haas. The closest they ever got to having an American driver go somewhere was Root Beer Floathead. And he went and canceled himself trying to run over Arjun Maini in a freaking Formula 2 race. Or Formula 3, whichever one they were in. He tried to run him over and they got in an argy-bargy. They both got fired. I mean, that's it. A guy who's the lead driver for Foyt now in IndyCar. That's who the one American they wanted to put over at Haas. Not like Colton Herta, not somebody who actually might have talent or ability, not a Logan Sargent. Fucking Santino Ferrucci. So, I mean, come on now. Williams, Doralton, I think there's some connections to America. You have other teams that have American sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. They have no problem. It's the same way as they don't mind all the Middle East money and all the crap that goes on in the Middle East. That's been a problem for going on 20 years now in Formula One. But the fact that they are so insistent on not wanting Michael Andretti to be in Formula One, I think is not only it's ignorance, it's fear, and it's stupidity. Because he's willing to pay whatever, they keep on moving goalposts. He's willing to pay the money to get in there. He's making connections with different manufacturers to make this happen. He's building a massive building to run all 86 of his programs. What the hell else do you want? I don't understand what you need to they actually want to be competitive. At no point has Gene Haas shown that he really wants to be competitive. The proof was in it last year when he had freaking Egghead driving one of those cars. He'd rather been connected to a freaking dictator than actually run a decent Formula One team. Like it pisses me off the way Formula One is starting to become, it's been this way. This old boys club mentality. They had no problem with Lawrence Stroll and his attitude and arrogance. They have no problem with Canadians bringing their money, but they don't mind having American money brought into the sport, but they don't want an American owner that actually has a clue get in the sport. The last time they had that was Carl Haas, but he wasn't able to fully commit because, to be fair, his program and everything running Lola in the U.S. and also having Mario Andretti, that was the thing that took precedence than their Formula One program, even though they had pieces there. But what are your thoughts, Josh, on this whole what is becoming a debacle with Michael Andretti trying to make a Formula One team and Formula One and the FIA moving the goalposts constantly?
No, yeah, I mean it's constant gatekeeping and by Formula One and most of the Formula One teams, I think, and I think Michael Andretti, I know he didn't have the greatest history in Formula One as a driver. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I'm just thinking off, speculating off the top of my head, and maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but Michael he's proven to be a successful team owner, in IndyCar and um, throughout other sports. He has multiple entities, like you said, and they I think they're building a huge facility in Indiana and I think in Carmel and outside of Indianapolis. So they're very much intentional is to grow their business and become a global motorsport giant. And I think that's going to end up being the plan there, but F1's making it really hard for them to do it, and they don't have to. And it's like, yeah, it's like you said, it is the old boys club for the most part, and there aren't really any new F1 teams that come in and break ground. And I think they know that Andretti, he has an idea of how to run a team, like you said, and they don't want a newcomer to come in and steal the show like that from them. Although it'd take a few years, because they're not going to run, you know, top 5 every week from the beginning, but it would happen very soon, I think. And they don't want that from Mercedes doesn't want that smoke. Red Bull doesn't want that smoke. Even Zach Brown and McLaren, they probably don't want that. And surprising because Zach Brown and Michael Andretti were
Yeah,
partners for the Indy
they are
500.
partners, and
Yeah.
there are partners in the V8 Supercars team. There are partners in sports cars
Yep.
or
Yep.
in WEC, I think.
Yeah. With
They're partners.
what's it called? I
Oh
forgot.
no, I'm wrong with that. United Autosport
Yeah.
is not with that's not with Andretti, but they are partners and connected with the supercars team that used to
Yeah.
be
Andretti
HRT,
Hawkinshaw United or whatever it's
Waukesha
called.
Andretti United,
Yeah.
which is now a Ford program.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have that. And, um, like I said before, like the partnership they had in the Indy 500 in 2017 with Fernando Alonso. And I mean, if anybody should be going to bat for Michael Andretti, it should be Zach Brown. And surprisingly, and they're in IndyCar together. So Zach Brown knows Andretti quite well. And I mean, I haven't looked into it too much, but
he flip-flopped.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, yeah, we'll be buddy buddy over here, but I'm not gonna let you come into my house or into my playground or whatever. So I'll come into your house, but I'm not letting you come into mine. So it's not a two-way street apparently. I don't know, but yeah, it's a really tough situation, and yeah, it's like they want all the benefits without all the commitment. I guess in a way, I guess I don't know. Like it's not a good situation, and Andretti. I mean, they've before they said they wanted to buy in with um not
Sauber.
yeah, Sauber, the former Sauber team, and uh, they wanted to do that, and now I think they want to become a completely new team and partner with Cadillac, and I think it sounds like from what I've been able to piece together that their power unit would be Renault. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so the one team that is maybe going to go bad for them is Alpine because they're basically Renault. They're the factory Renault team and everything. So there's that, but you'd have 20 or well, not 20 other team, 20 drivers, but
Nine other
yeah, 9
teams
other
that are going
teams
against it.
that are going aren't going to bat for you. So it's really interesting to see how this plays out and everything. I mean, you should have at least 3 teams on his I said. So McLaren, um, Alpine, like who's already I think partnering with him, and Gene Haas
Yeah.
with Haas because of course Haas is an American team. There's probably some
No.
common ground. Michael Andretti can call Tony Stewart and tell him to get Gene on the phone and be like, why are you fading me here? So uh, it's just
I
a
think
unique
Tony and Gene
situation.
talk that much.
Oh
That
yeah,
might be
but I
part of the
mean,
problem.
there's still the link there. There's still the
Yeah.
link there, so you at least have to try.
Yeah.
But it's just another gatekeeping situation, and it's unfortunate because there needs to be I mean, if everyone's gonna have a presence here in America, like with the Netflix series with the Miami Grand Prix, the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and then COTA, the Grand Prix of the United States, and of course having potential American talent come into Formula One potentially, with Logan Sargent's already
Be
already
there,
there.
yeah.
He's going to be there. Then you have potentially Colton Herta in the future. You might have Pelot come over, through McLaren. You might have other drivers like Pato O'Ward come over there that have that potential. and you have American talent that could be there, and then all you need is an American run team that can actually kind of help foster that talent and make sure that they have a shot and they don't get wasted like some of these other American talents that have come or tried to come through and didn't make it, or they made it and didn't have a good opportunity. So you need that, and it's like, nah, we don't want you here. We'll play in your house, but we're not letting you in our house. So it's clearly not a two-way street right now in Formula One with America.
And it's a problem that the PR aspect of it, they're not going to be able to fade it, as this keeps on going. They did the whole thing with Colton. Uh, they didn't want, and this is Red Bull wanted him, and they didn't want to allow him because of the stupidity of the super license point, and how they'll do the levels. And then that was the first piece. Then Michael said, "Oh, I want to buy the, like you talked about before that. He wanted to get Sauber. They decided to go against, and Fred Vasseur was a part of that. And now he's at Ferrari. Ferrari will just they seem to have like veto power on everything. And Ferrari, I'm like, what the hell? What would happen if somebody told them they couldn't run the WEC with the car they did? What are they going to do? Cry wolf? I mean, that's really what Ferrari always does. They cry wolf, they say bullshit, and then they come back like dogs. So they blame Mercedes and Toto Wolff, and it's like the reality of the world is that team was the Brawn team. Now it's of course a super team. The notion they have, what is it, 3 customers programs as well, so they power 40% of the grid as it stands right now. Alpine definitely needs another customer. And that's part of it. I think they don't want Alpine to get more data and be able to get better. Red Bull essentially is going to have their own power unit here in the next few years, and Red Bull is what they are, and they know AlphaTauri is just going to do whatever Red Bull wants them to do. So that's 2 teams right there. I mean, Ferrari has Haas because they're a customer, so they're going to roll over like a dog. And Sauber, at least until next end of this year, has a Ferrari connection. That's where I think that's part of the problem. Sauber and Haas and Williams, because of their current standing in a sense and being smaller market teams, that plays a role. McLaren being a big name but not having done a lot in recent years, over more or less, they fear that. Aston Martin, because Lawrence Stroll is a jackass, is afraid of an owner coming in that actually has a clue. And I'm trying to see who else. That's basically most of the midfield and be back of the field, right? That's half the teams. I just named half the teams. And then AlphaTauri is a waste of time. So that's 6 teams. That's a whole second half of the grid. You have, and I mean, McLaren's in the top half or whatever. Alpine supports them, and then you have the top 3 teams. So, I mean, it's a joke. And I honestly think if Andretti really wants to spend that much money, he ought to go and spend it on his IndyCar program so that they can actually be better. That would be a novel concept. Because you have Kyle Kirkwood coming in, taking over Alexander Rossi. You have Colton Herta, who is fast, but makes too many mistakes. I'd be investing in those 2 guys. And I don't know who the hell else. They have that DeFrancesco who sucks dick, and then I forget who the other driver is. They still have a 4-car team, right? In IndyCar. Josh, I don't remember who their other guy was from last year.
They had Rossi,
Grosjean.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rossi, Grosjean, De Francesco, and Colton Herta.
Yeah. So, and Grosjean, to be fair, may want to go back to Europe with his family, even with the DHL sponsorship being there. He may want to go back. He is a Lamborghini driver, factory prototype driver. He's going to be one of the testers this year. So you would think in 2024 he's going to want to go and run the WEC, dovetail with some other races here and there. So what are you doing? You want to be in Formula One, but I also look at it in the sense that there's definitely the big two with Penske and Ganassi. McLaren, in whatever name form you want to think about it, is basically become that next team, largely because of Pato O'Ward. But now there's been a lot of changes there, a lot of movement there, and now they're a 3-car team. So that's the two. There's the two main Chevy teams and the one Honda team. The second Honda team's supposed to be Andretti. They're young, but they need to move. They have to do they have to do some work. Kirkwood has a talent, but he just destroyed so many race cars last year. We don't really know how good he can be. He showed flashes, but now the pressure's on. Colton Herta had the save of the year, and he won a race and all this, but he's just as likely to bin it while leading. That's the problem. And why is Andretti insisting on that? Invest in the products that you have. It's like, I got a better idea. If you got $200 million to spend, go and buy 2 charters in the Cup Series. Buy Rick Ware's charters. Do us all a favor. Go and get another manufacturer in a NASCAR and buy 2 charters. That would be, or actually, I got a better idea. Since Dale Jr. and them all just bought the Cars Tour, call Dale Jr. and say, hey, let's work together and buy a charter. And it'll be Earnhardt Andretti Racing or whatever, or Andretti whatever you want to call it. That would be a better thing than
ear.
Ear, yeah, or Junior and or Jar Junior Andretti Jr. Whatever. It would be a good let because it'll be as funny as when Yates tried to get together Newman Haas Lanigan. When that lasted for about 10 seconds, Newman, Haas, Lanigan, Yates racing, back in the aughts or whatever, before the team went in the toilet. So yeah, that is that. I mean, it just frustrates me that Formula One, their arrogance of the way they do things, they're not that good. You see some of the teams and how bad they really are. It's like fearing competition speaks a lot to what kind of people you are. If you can't deal with it, you know what I mean? Like that's really part of it that it just bothers me. Especially as somebody who's I was a fan of Michael Andretti over the years, and he's become a mogul. I can only imagine what they would say if Roger Penske did the same thing. Or Ganassi. I wonder what they would say to those guys if they don't think Michael Andretti's viable. Okay, so let's move forward into the roundup. Supercross, Anaheim 1 took place, and that was a great race. I got on just in time to see the race, the main event. It was a really good one. Missed the 251, but Jet Lawrence, who's likely going to be in Supercross in 450s next year, won the West Region 250 race 1. But then Eli Tomac took his first Anaheim 1 victory after he took the lead past Colt Nichols and Justin Barsha up there, Ken Roczen. They were all up in that lead pack with Tomac. Tomac passed all of them. Tomac fell on the start-finish tabletop, and Malcolm Stewart was in second, past him, but then got passed by Chase Sexton. Malcolm Stewart ended up having a huge crash. Chase Sexton ended up falling off too. So everybody was falling, everyone was making mistakes, but that allowed Eli Tomac to recover and come back on Sexton, who made a couple of mistakes, or I don't know if he fell, but he definitely made mistakes. And Eli Tomac was able to go and get that pass and win. Cooper Webb, 2-time champion in the series. Of course, Eli Tomac's also a 2-time champion. A big run for him. Cooper Webb finishes second, but he was far back. And then the third place spot was Chase Sexton there. So interesting start to the year. Eli Tomac, of course, going and winning the A1 is huge for his team. Huge for what's going to happen in terms of the season. I mean, you think about what he may be doing or what he might do. It seems like he may not. This might be his last year, so giving him that opportunity to come back and win might be a big problem. Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, Chase Sexton, Dylan Ferrandis, Ken Roczen, your top 5. So you had 4 manufacturers represented there in the top 5. Then Colt Nichols, Jason Anderson, Aaron Plessinger, Adam Cianciarulo, and Joey Savacci round out the top 10. In the 250s, Jet Lawrence wins over RJ Hampshire, Cameron McAdoo were your podium finishers. Then Mitchell Oldenburg, Max Voland, Enzo Lopes, Levi Kitchen, Phil Nicoletti, and Styles Robertson and Derek Kelly are your top 10 in that. They'll be racing at Oakland this weekend for round 2 of the Supercross Championship. The Dakar Rally is still going. Nasser Al-Attiyah is highly likely. I mean, he's well ahead at this point. And so it's going to be hard to see anybody really beating them as it stands. Sebastian Loeb won this one stage. The last thing that reported is Sebastian Loeb winning the stage 8. So I don't know who won stage 9. They haven't posted it yet, at least. Right now, Nasser Al-Attiyah has a over an hour lead. It's a Toyota 1-2-3 right now. Sebastian Loeb needs to make up 32 minutes to get on the podium. Lucas Morais, or he can 50 minutes to get to second. Janelle de Villiers, teammate to Nasser Al-Attiyah, is 5th. Romain Dumas is 6th. So that's the cars category. In the motorcycle category, it's very competitive. American rider Skylar Howes. Oh, it is a rest day. That's why. Okay, so Skylar Howes is leading the race right now by 1 minute 13 seconds over fellow American Mason Klein. Kevin Benavides, former champion of this race, is also at 1:13 behind. Toby Price, former winner, also 2:58 behind. So 3 KTMs behind the Husqvarna of Skylar Howes. Trying to see who else. Anybody that's familiar, don't really know any of that. So that's the bike class there. Hopefully one of the 2 Americans can come through. I was thinking that Ricky Brabeck, former winner of the race, was going to have a good one. Unfortunately, he had a huge accident, but he's home safely, getting nursed back to health with his smoking hot girlfriend, Sarah Price. Chili Bowl taking place. Midget Nationals. Our former guest, Ralph Shaheen, is there. So they had practice yesterday on Sunday. Tonight's the first prelim night. of so what is that? Spencer base. Oh, so it looks like so Spencer Baston won the race of champions. So then what is it? So that's a good start to the week for Baston. Takes the win in the 1S with True Timber Camo as a sponsor. I guess that's a sprint car uniform there. So wins the. Wow, those are some interesting looking women there. On the trophy girls, the one looks like Lisa, or looks like what's her name? The Nikki Benz, old Nikki Benz, and the other one looks like a comment partly like Nicole Bass, but whatever. The results of the Race of Champions: Spencer Baston, Cannon McIntosh, Rico Abreu, Logan Seavey, Tanner Thorson, the defending champion of the Chili Bowl, Chase Briscoe, Buddy Kofoid, Blake Hahn, Justin Grant, and Cody Swanson, where you round out the top 10. Michael Pickens, Alex Bowman, Tim McCready, former winner of the Chili Bowl, Tanner Carrick, Zach Daum, Brendan Crouch, Shane Cockrum, Sammy Swindell, the winningest driver in the history of the Chili Bowl Midget Nationals, and the Demon Damian Gardner round out the field. Of course, Sammy Swindell's won 4 of these races, along with the 5 A-mains in the Chili Bowl. Christopher Bell won 2 years in a row. Justin Grant Baston, that's a recent. Tanner Thorson's a 2-time winner of this event. Chad Boat won this, and Kyle Larson is a 2-time winner. Kevin Swindell, Brad Loyette. So good start to the week for Logan Seavey, or Spencer Baston, I mean, to get that victory, and a good run for Chase Briscoe just outside the top 5. Rico Abreu is definitely somebody to look at for in terms of a favorite, 2-time winner of this race. It's been tough sledding since he won back to back. We'll see what happens with that. Going through the heat races, time Toyota qualifiers. Dave and P features. And so the A feature for Monday night: Cannon McIntosh, Trey Marcham, Chris Wyndham, Ryan Timms, Shane Golobic, Kyle Spence, Jerry Coons Jr., Tanner Holmes, Sean McClellan, Tom Harris, Gavin Boschel. Chase Briscoe made it in. If he can get in the top 2, he'd be locked into the A main. Steven Snyder Jr., TJ Smith, Tyler Edwards, Gary Taylor, Alex Sewell, Nick Hoffman, Cap Henry, Jacob Denny, Ayrton Jeniton, Daniel Adler, Howard Moore, Joey Paxson. I've barely heard of a lot of these guys. So some of the people that missed the A, I'm trying to look through this quickly, see if there's anything that stands out. Probably would if they had midget racing on TV more often like they used to. Tony Bruce Jr. was just outside in his B. That's the only one I could really see. So there's going to be other prelims the rest of the week leading up to Saturday night, and the whole feature, all the alphabet soup. So we'll see what happens with that, and we'll tell you who won the Chili Bowl next week. I'm hoping it's either Rico or Chase, but I'm sure there are plenty of guys, Buddy Kofoid and others, that can really put a whooping on people and have a chance. In terms of Formula E, the preview for the 2023 season, they're going to start here in Mexico City to this weekend at Hermanos Rodriguez. So that'll be a cool thing to see. They have 1995 graphics, which is also great for Formula E. The teams for this year will be Apt Cupra Formula E team, which will have power units from Mahindra. Robin Freins and Nico Muller will be the drivers there. Avalanche Andretti Formula E team, they're going to have Porsche powertrains, and they will have Jake Dennis and Andre Lauderer in their cars. DS Penske, so they're getting the whole DS program there. Defending champion Stoffel Van Dorn and multiple champion Jean-Eric Verne will be there. Envision Racing, who will be using Jaguar powertrains, will bring back Nick Cassidy and former champion Sebastian Buemi. Jaguar TCS Racing, unchanged, Mitch Evans and Sam Bird. Mahindra Racing makes changes to bring Oliver Rowland and former champion Luca Di Grassi in. Maserati MSG Racing is the former whatchamacall team. Trying to remember Rocket Venturi Racing. There you go. Rocket Venturi Racing, Eduardo Motara, Max Gunther, the drivers there. Neom McLaren Formula E is the old Mercedes team that Stoffel Van Dorn, of course, won with last year, Jake Hughes and Rene Rast. Neo 333 Racing with their own powertrain, Dan Ticktum and Sergio Sette Camara, formerly of Penske. Nissan Formula E team will be Sasha Fenestraz and Norman Nato. Fenestraz drives Japanese Super GT for Nissan. Then you have the Porsche Tag Heuer Porsche Formula E team, former champion Antonio Felix da Costa and Pascal Wehrlein. New car this year, wide open to see who's going to be up there. Schedule is different, of course, this year than new events and the why can't I go into races drive? There you go. So they'll be at Mexico City to start this season here this weekend. Then in 2 weeks, they'll be in Saudi for 2 rounds. Then in February, early February, they'll go to India for the first time. End of February, they will go to South Africa in Cape Town. They'll take a month break and then run in Sao Paulo, Brazil for the first time. The Berlin E-Prix will take place in April with 2 rounds back to back on the streets or on their airport circuit they have there. They'll return to Monaco in early May prior to the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix. Jakarta, Indonesia will have a doubleheader on the weekend of July 4th for us. And Portland, Oregon will have a Formula E race, first time in the U.S. at the end of June. Rome will host a round of the Formula E Championship, the next to last round. They'll run 2 races, and then the London E-Prix at the end of July will round out the championship. So they'll be busy somewhat here. They'll be running, a total of 5 rounds in the span of about 6-7 weeks. And then after that, things will slow down a little bit with Brazil and then the Berlin. And then afterwards, the Monaco race, they'll kind of have those clustered together. So interesting to see. We'll see how the new cars are and how they race. And if there's a little more competition there in regards to the Formula E championship. In terms of IMSA, there's some news. You got join NT2's new IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Don, yeah. So, oh god, Alessandro Delita. He's a jackass. Oh boy. Wow. I know who. There's going to be a caution there. That Lamborghini probably won't be in one piece at the end of the 24 hours. I think that's Nikki Team will join Andy Lally, John Potter, and Spencer Pumpelly in the Magnus Racing Aston Martin. Nikki Team, of course, the factory Aston Martin driver. There. Josh, I guess you can kick in here on this Cars late model tour before we move into NASCAR segment there. NASCAR part. I don't know who this guy is. Oh, Steve Erickson, formerly of HPD, has taken over the CEO for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan in IndyCar and IMSA, where, of course, IndyCar with Honda and then IMSA with BMW. Franco Colapinto joins the F1 Academy for Williams. Was it WEC says customer LMH cars are possible, not just LMDH, but I find that interesting because I've not seen anybody offer those cars yet. So while the LMDH programs are able to go and offer customer cars, so that'll be something to look at as years go by. Okay. Ran through all of that. We got some other pieces. Yeah, I mentioned, so Pietro Fittipaldi is going to be racing in both the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and in WEC, along with being the test and reserve driver for Haas. Fittipaldi and Eric Lux will drive together at the Rick Ware Racing LMP2. And then they're going to have Devlin DeFrancesco and defending Daytona 500 winner Austin Cindric in that car. So that'll be an interesting piece there. Interesting car. I mean, obviously, we know Austin Cindric is good. And last year, Eric Lux and Devlin DeFrancesco were part of the winning LMP2 team that also had Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward as the driver lineup. So we'll see if they can repeat. Josh, I'll kick to you in terms of the news that Dale Earnhardt Jr., amongst a group of big time guys in the NASCAR Cup Series, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burton, Kevin Harvick, and Justin Marks, will buy the Cars Tour, which has a pro late models and a late model stock division. Of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. with Junior Motorsports has kept. He's had teams in this series from its inception. Of course, Jeff Burton is doing stuff, and then you got Justin Marks always looking for good investments. Kevin Harvick, of course, who's trying to think of a career for Keelan, whether that it's going to be here or it's going to be an open wheel. I think Keelan wants to go to Formula One, but see what happens there. In terms of this, I mean, it's a big news for late model racing. There's a lot of changes going on. There's super late model. There's a series that's going to have a bunch of big races. You have the late model stock division, which has Carson Kvapil as the defending champion, likely future Xfinity driver for Junior Motorsports. Josh Berry, of course, was a dominant figure there. But to have those big names all collaborate together, I think it's a big deal for short tracks and late model racing.
No, yeah, it's definitely a big deal for sure. And you look at the move and who all's involved. Of course, there's a couple months ago we've seen this rumor that Dale Jr. and his sister Kelly had bought a stake in the series, and that had been rumors for a while now, and now we finally get that confirmation, which I thought that was really interesting. That Dale Jr. was gonna buy this, or at least buy a stake in the series, and he hadn't known the reasons yet, but now we know now. But then also, Kevin Harvick is also having a stake in it, and which is really interesting, and it makes sense now with last couple of months. Harvick and Rodney Childers, who are making a late model team, I guess. So now it kind of makes more sense that they're getting back involved with late models. Burton, he's involved with it too. And I mean, he's a short track guy too. I mean, he South Boston Speedway, back in the day. So he's been somebody who's been around for a while, who knows how to get it done on the short tracks. And Harrison grew up through short track racing as well. Through Pass and Pro All Star Series, and cars as well. So he's somebody that has been in that system for a while, so he knows the environment, of course. And then Justin Marks, who I think is he's the new guy here, right? But he really understands the business side as well, and we've seen the growth of Trackhouse Racing the last 2 years, and they're going to continue to grow and expand throughout the years. And Junior himself, of course, star power. So it's gonna be interesting to see the direction this late model series goes in. Could especially with a NASCAR heavy ownership group, could be a feeder potentially for late model racing into stock cars, into the truck series, and into the Xfinity series. We could see more expansion of it, I guess, with going to larger NASCAR run short tracks or affiliated short tracks. And you think about some of the I mean, they already race at Martinsville, right? But but maybe they go race at Bristol, or I mean, I don't know if they already do, but or Richmond, or go to Iowa, or any of these other like larger short tracks around the nation that host the Cup Series, the Xfinity, and the Truck Series. So could see something like that, and definitely grows the exposure of the series as well, with all those star power names there that are in the ownership group. And they'll figure something out, and definitely help grow the sport of short track racing for sure, and help facilitate it and steward, just have a stewardship of it, and definitely brings a lot of credibility into short track racing. So now, I mean, there's multiple series that run late models throughout the southeast, throughout America. But it's gonna be I think this is gonna be like the main series now, with this type of group behind it. So we'll see in the coming years the direction that they take this series. And if they do a better job running it than NASCAR does their own series, they're gonna have to really make some hard decision there. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. It's something to look at, the way late models and super late models in the Southeast and in general, and West Coast, how they've all been run. There's some of the unification aspects. I'm trying to find a rules package that actually is unified, as Georgia dominates and wins the national championship 65-7. Wow. That's god awful. So yeah, so a couple of things in NASCAR news. Chad Johnston got announced as the crew chief for Ryan Preece. Oh God, I feel bad for Ryan Preece already. Maybe Chad Johnson figured out how to become a better crew chief in the last few years. Because he sure as hell wasn't a good one when he was Tony Stewart's crew chief. He was all right with Kyle Larson at the 42 car. And Jonathan Toney, former engineer or longtime engineer at SHR, will become the crew chief for Cole Custer in the Xfinity series and in some betting circles, they're making the favorite Cole Custer. So interesting, since they're reestablishing a team and he's coming back to the Xfinity Series, getting demoted in a sense, for them to be a favorite. But considering his Xfinity record, winning a race last year, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Garrett Smithley, they announced earlier last year that he would be in the number 78 for BJ McLeod Motorsports, but instead he'll be in the number 99 full time, for whatever that's worth. Blaine Perkins is going to be the main driver for SS Greenlight Racing. They'll switch to Chevys, at least for his car. The second team will run Fords and Chevys. Blaine Perkins will have Mike Hillman Sr. as his crew chief, and they'll get RCR engines. So that's not a bad situation there. Blaine Perkins is a part of Ron Hornaday's development deal there. So interesting to see. Maybe we'll see Ron Hornaday at some more Xfinity races. Then Joe Williams, crew chief, who has been in the sport for a while. He was working in the trucks. He's also worked in the Xfinity. He will become the crew chief for the number 25 Ford for AM Racing for Brett Moffitt. So that'll be an interesting combination. Of course, AM Racing essentially takes over where SS Greenlight was as a satellite effort for Stewart-Haas Racing, and an expanded amount of Fords that'll be out there in the Xfinity series. So we'll see what happens with that. And that team, Joe Williams does have experience with Moffitt previously at Our Motorsports. All right. So, Josh, let us know what's going on in the world of sim racing, iRacing, and other gaming in your segment.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we talked about it, already, with all the things that could be happening this year with iRacing. And I mean, they have the Rolex, not the Rolex 24 iRacing, but they have the iRacing Roar 2.4 before the 24, I think this weekend or next weekend. So that might be interesting. I don't know if I'm have enough time, especially if I go to the Jaguars playoff game. I don't know if I have time to do that. So if it is this weekend, I have to double check on the schedule. But I mean, there's that going around. I did run the Honda Civic Type R at Daytona, and ran pretty well on that one. Run usually. I've been doing a little bit more road racing lately. Been doing Mazda Miatas as well. Also at Daytona and at Summit Point Raceway ran pretty well, and actually on the last lap got into turn one a little too hot and was racing the leader the whole race, and actually got into him. And I could have kept going, but I actually stopped, or almost stopped, because I was like hoping that he could get it straight and we could keep continuing, and I wouldn't have to say that I wrecked the guy for the win at least, or but it was my fault there, I guess. But at the same time, I feel like the leader in front of me, just maybe slowed down a little bit too much, and I think he was going to miss the corner as well, and I just was a little bit too hot into the corner and ran in the back of him. But that's how it works sometimes, and still ended up finishing second. But then the other guy actually finished third, and whoever was third was like 3 seconds behind us, and then he passed for the win. So that's fine. But yeah, I think I haven't really done too much on iRacing, and it's because playoff stuff, and then also last Friday, I actually went go-karting in Orlando. I went to Orlando Kart Center, which is actually pretty well known if you pay attention to people like Juan Montoya, Rubens Barrichello. They've been known to go to this place, and other guys probably Kanan. I'm sure that Kevin Harvick has probably taken Keelan there at some point, because I know he's been to Ocala before. But yeah, I haven't been there in quite some time, since like 2011. Usually for go karting, go to K1 Speed or other places that have the more electric style go karts. But uh, Orlando Kart Center has gas powered carts, and they're a lot different. They handle a lot different, honestly, than the electric ones, because the electric ones have a lot more grip. There's the greater, weight power to weight ratio. So you have you feel the acceleration, but you're also a polished floor and everything. So you have a lot of grip, and it's really easy to, drive it, at 100% and, get the most out of it. But it felt different with the gas go-kart outdoors on pavement. And, you really had to find the groove in the corner, and hit your marks. And I actually spun out a bunch uh, throughout my time on Friday. I locked up the brakes a lot going into the corner, so I was driving it like, because I was used to how I was with the electric carts. And I didn't really I guess I didn't really factor in the difference there, because I would go in too hot and brake way late and lock up the brakes. And then you have that feeling where you lose the cart, and you lose, everything comes out from under you, and you you know either go into the barrier or you go into the grass, and you just got to wait until it stops so you can get back going again and turn around. So that was a pretty interesting experience, and honestly had a lot of fun doing it. It was I mean, the first race I did was pretty good, and then kind of fell off after that. But enjoyed it, and want to try to go back there soon. But it was a lot of fun because you're really sliding around. There's not as much grip, and coming out of the corner, I was having to, like, say I was going into a right hander, I'd have to like steer it back to the left on corner exit. So really having to slide it, drift through the corner. But maybe losing a little speed off of there, so maybe got to work on that part. But really enjoyed that part of it, because you're really having to fight the car and handle it, and put a lot of the driving aspect into it, and figure out your approach to the corners and everything. So really like that, and hope to try to go back there soon and try it again. And everything. I was with one friend, and we had both he'd been there a couple weeks ago, and we were like, let's go karting on Friday. So went through that, and hopefully we can get some other friends out there soon, in the next month or two or something like that, and go out and race. But yeah, really enjoy that part of it, and want to try to get back out there. And then actually, when I went back home, I was trying to look up stuff online, because I know there's a couple of go karting sims, and I was actually trying to look into that to take advantage of that, and just try to practice, like, because I mean iRacing doesn't have a go kart thing, they don't have anything that low. So I was gonna try to look into that. Maybe I might do that. But iRacing, still, having the feeling, I guess, from sim racing, still kind of transfers over, because you don't, a lot of people that try go karting for the first time are very inexperienced with it. They don't really have the sense of speed or the feel. But with um, you know, iRacing, sim racing, you have the ability to, you know, kind of practice your feeling, I guess, of the steering and brakes and all that stuff, and get used to heavy braking, and quick steering and all that stuff. And then also your racecraft as well. And I was able to kind of work on my racecraft a little bit during that go-karting session. And whenever I got through traffic, try to change my line to try to get through traffic a little bit easier, or you know take a different entry into the corner, so that I would come out on the other side passing them, or getting ready to pass them and everything. So I was able to do that and have fun. So it was a real fun experience there. Hope to try to get to do that soon, and try it again and try to improve my lap times and everything. So felt like, yeah, for first time is actually pretty consistent, because He was either like inside the top 3 or just outside of it first time there in a long time. Really first time there in general. I mean, I was there in 2011, but that was such a long time ago and different carts now. And I think the track layout was a lot. I mean, it's still the same, but I think there is a different course layout that I was on there that time before. So, um, you know, uh, great experience. And if you're in the Orlando area, I think if you want a real like racing go karting experience, you go to Orlando Kart Center. K1 Speed, other places, electric go karts. They're there, but I feel like they're more um, definitely more centered towards the tourist, I guess, because if you walk in there, you have the carts and everything, and it is very efficient in terms of being able to go in there, sign up, get your races in, and all that stuff. But I feel like for a more motorsports centric one, you have to go to one that is not only a rental place, but then also has the owner's karting owner's garage or whatever. So they understand the sport of racing karting better than a business would. So plus K1 Speed, they also have like um arcade and stuff, and I think there's like uh a bowling out like a mini bowling alley, not like a whole bowling alley, but they have like 2 or 3 lanes inside there as well. And yeah, and there's another place in Jacksonville too that has a electric go-karting thing that I've been to a bunch. And um they have axe throwing is there as well, and they have an arcade and virtual reality simulator or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of fun in games, and restaurants and stuff like that. But I think for a real authentic experience, you got to go to one that doubles as a actual go kart track for kart owners. So yeah, that's sim racing, go kart racing segment for me and everything. So there's that, and put in my stuff before it gets to you on the close, but. Of course, you can always follow Jaguars takes and everything at JP Huffine, which I'll be, popping off about, this weekend. Maybe I'll cut a promo or do something. I don't know yet. I have to figure something out for that, but definitely be popping off on there about the Jaguars, at least for the time being. On my Twitter at JP Huffine, and it's a great environment to be on Jaguars Twitter right now, as we have a winning record and a playoff team. So glad to be on that. And also, you can follow our YouTube page at Gripshirt Podcasts on there, and see our videos and everything, which we'll have this video up soon, hopefully. And this is a good discussion with Niner Nate, and glad to be able to talk with him on there, and talk about football and all that stuff. So glad we had that conversation. And then of course, as always, follow when I'm streaming. Follow the streams at JP, or yeah, at USailor2 on Twitch TV. Go follow there for all the racing content when I decide to stream on iRacing or any other game or racing game simulator or whatever. So go on there and follow or subscribe, whatever. You can send me cash if you want, I guess, because Twitch has that ability, I think, but I don't really need it. So I'm not a professional streamer or anything like that, so I don't really need it. But I guess if you wanted to, you could. But yeah, you can follow me on all those platforms and everything. So yeah, should be an interesting weekend here with playoffs. First weekend of the NFL playoff weekend. Hopefully Jaguars come out and win. But if they don't, I'll still be okay. I'll still be able to do the show. Give you the the opinion on that regardless. Be even keeled, give you my honest opinion on that and everything. So hopefully Jaguars win.
I was just reading some of Pat McAfee's greatest lines from today's national championship game. He probably was the most interesting thing that was going on in this national championship game, because it definitely wasn't a football game. Yeah, he was in a suit and everything. Wow. Yeah, looking sharp. He actually didn't cut the sleeves off either. That is literally the only good thing that happened in this national championship game. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter, at GripstripPod on Twitter is our show one, and we have uh, over 160 followers, so that's really good. We're getting there. Hopefully, we can get to 200 some point. Uh, uh, the not sure this year. What? Oh, I knew it's like, yeah, I have no idea. I was confused when they said that too. Like, we made the main here. Okay. Yeah. I knew, see, I knew he made the A main. I knew I was right. Freaking guy. Because of Chase Briscoe had made the A main before. I was talking to another Chase Briscoe fan. For me, also, you can find the Gripster podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we talked about the YouTube page, Gripster Pod, philipgmatthew.com. You can find the sound for the show there, along with whatever platforms you listen to podcasts. We will be back with episode 152 of the Gripster podcast next week to cover Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll also get into the divisional round weekend. Hopefully, both of our teams are still alive, and we can talk about that. We'll get into all the news in motorsports, some who won the Chili Bowl, who won at Oakland for Supercross, Formula E, etc., etc. Getting close to the Rolex 24, of course, so gonna start getting into that. Trying to see if we have any more recaps we should do, but I don't think we do. So we'll see what happens with that. Thanks to Niner Nate for coming on and providing some great content there here on the GSP. Josh, as always, for what you do, and hopefully be careful out there and don't get crazy. Don't. I mean, if you're gonna cut a promo like a Rock promo or like Stone Cold Steve Austin, cool. Hopefully, you're not like doing the Buffalo Bills going through tables and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, we'll be back next week for episode 152 of the Gripster podcast. For Josh, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.